is one of the great 20th century composers. Not just an American composer, he's just a great composer. And he wrote the music based on the way our so-called classical through composers do. They write for a person. Duke Ellington wrote his music based on the personnel that was in his band. Johann Sebastian Bach wrote for a specific trumpet player. Mozart, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, wrote for a specific French horn player. Haven't you ever wondered who was the tuba player that Prokofiev wrote for? Those tuba parts are some of the greatest tuba parts you ever want to hear. So I had to have the courage, and believe me, it took time. I mean, that was about 3 years ago. So I mean, I was already in my 60s, going to my 60s, when I had the courage to do that. The first time I played that piece was in Vienna, Austria. Everybody thinks of the Austrians as very protective of their composers and very protective of the style that one interprets their composers. I got a chance to play a concerto written for me by a guy. I'm going to play an excerpt for you now. His name is Daniel Schnieder. If you don't know his music, you got to get to know his music because he's become an amazing worldwide star. His opera is being played over in Bethlehem now. He wrote about the relationship between Jews and Muslims. He has just finished an opera on Charlie Parker that's being premiered in Philadelphia. It's being brought up to the Apollo Theater, and it's being brought to Chicago. So this guy there are boundaries that are no longer boundaries. That's what I'm trying to say. When I went to Austria, I went to play a concerto. And I knew I needed an encore to the concerto. So I came up with this. It was the first time I ever played this. I arranged it for low strings, no violins. This was arranged for 6 basses. I arranged this for 6 basses. And that was one of the ways I sold this. But the people who hired me for this knew my playing and knew my work, but they had to figure out a way to sell it to Kennedy Center. So I came up with this scheme. I said, yes, I want to play Franz Schubert as if I was surrounded by big trees in a forest. I had an arrangement for 6 basses, so I had to figure out a way to sell the 6 basses. So I started calling them trees in the forest. And it went over. When I went to Austria, I pulled out this arrangement after I rehearsed the concerto, and this is a music hall called the Musikverein. It's a Carnegie Hall here. And when I handed out the parts to the string players, I told them this is only going to be an encore if we need it. I was very insecure about it. Again, I had never played it. I gave them the parts to play, and they started kind of smirking because it was all these low triads, you know. And then when I took out the plunger, I started playing it. The smirks turned into joy, and they insisted that I played the thing on the concert, whether it required an encore or not. So what did that show me? That gave me the courage. Here, I mean, Schubert is Vienna's hometown boy. You know what I mean? So here, if they will accept something because they felt it was from the heart in the moment, that gave me courage to do it. You know Luciano Berio Sequenza? Has anybody ever heard? All right. Anybody know who Luciano Berio is? Luciano Berio wrote one of the most iconic, Italian composer now deceased, one of the most iconic trombone solos, unaccompanied trombone solos of the 20th century. I think it was written in the 60s, if I'm not mistaken. It was written for 2 great trombonists, Vinko Globokar, French guy, and Stuart Dempster, an American. I don't know if you ever heard of him. You gotta check him out too. He wrote, in fact, a book, I forget the name of the book, on modern extra, what do you call that?
Extended.
Huh?
Extended.
Extended technique, right. I played it in it's a tenor trombone piece. I played it an octave lower, and I turned the whole thing upside down. I played it in the Netherlands, and the cats came up to me after some of the cats and said, you know, man, if Luciano Berio ever heard you do this, he'd sue you. So then, I played it 3 weeks later in front of famous composers like Elliott Carter. Have you ever heard that name? Elliott Carter? Man, you guys got to start getting hip to, I know some of you are young, but you got to start getting hip to what's being written in the last 30 years, 40 years, you know. Elliott Carter, Milton Babbitt, Charles Warren, all kinds of these famous Pulitzer Prize winning, very famous cats. They loved it. They absolutely loved it. The New York Times took a big picture of me and they splashed it all over the place. You must have courage, even though you are preparing for your auditions, and even though you know, or you think you know, what's expected of you, and that's too strict. It's not as expected as you think. If you walk into an audition, and we should speak to these cats about it later, if you walk into an audition with a deep understanding of the music, perfection takes on a new meaning. And it doesn't mean don't crack any notes. They will give you the hearing. If you learn your music on a deep, personal level, knowing how to share it with other people. Tell me about my interpretation. And I don't want to hear about it as good or bad. Just tell me what you were hearing in relation to the vocal. You.
I feel like it was like interesting since you used the plunger to imitate the vocal sound,
right?
Stuff, and it was a lot more complex. I feel like it than like your standard trombone slide. I feel like the plunger was like a nice touch, added different amounts of color,
right?
Sound, and they ended the piece with multi-phonic. So yeah.
What'd you make of the basses? For the accompanying instruments. Anybody, what do you make of the basses?
The atmosphere was.
The atmosphere.
Yeah, that was the atmosphere.
Right.
Dirge, basically.
That was the atmosphere. And these guys were good. We had just, I flew down to Washington, and we had about 2 hours to rehearse it. These guys played in a group called the National Symphony. It's a very well-known orchestra down there. Let me read you. I put this, we're getting into the zone as he being egotistical or not, but you know what, at this point in my life, I'm going there. For a variety of, now the guy who wrote this, the guy who hired me to play a Schubert piece called the Arpeggione Sonata. The Arpeggione was a kind of a cello. It was only around for 10 years. And to tell you the truth, the guy that Schubert wrote the piece for was a mutual, the guy who commissioned Schubert was a mutual friend of the Arpeggione player and Schubert, and he was a heavy-duty alcoholic opium eater. He was nuts. And the instrument was only around for 10 years. Yet Schubert wrote this incredible sonata for him, and some of us now are starting to play it. Tenor trombone players, you should be thinking about this. The Schubert Arpeggione Sonata. And I'm going to read you, and the guys who brought me down to play it are intellectuals. The guy who wrote this article, he produces concerts for the New York Philharmonic, for the San Francisco Symphony, has his own orchestras. He runs an orchestra in D.C. that he brought me down to do this. And they didn't know what to make of what I was going to do. And he wrote a whole treatise, basically. He writes a lot of books. He's written history of the orchestras, history of music. He's written about individual writers. He's written of anti-piano competition. He was a New York Times critic. For a variety of reasons, raw spontaneity is less common at symphonic performances nowadays than in the 19th century and before. In the days when they were also composers, performers were, of course, more prone to improvise. In the days before recordings and airplanes, there was no centripetal norm for interpretation. In other words, guys interpreted differently. It wasn't just like, oh, we heard the recording, we hear how it's supposed to be, let's jump in and do the same thing. That's why I'm playing you all these different interpretations of Bach and vocal stuff. Post-classical ensembles, Schubert, there's going to be some ego reading here about me, and I don't believe it. I'm just reading the article. Post-classical ensembles, Schubert uncorked in D.C. last weekend was the least predictable concert I have ever produced. At the close of the dress rehearsal the same afternoon, we had little real idea how the evening's concert would fare. The main event was a world premiere, the Arpeggione Concerto for bass trombone and strings, this being a reimagining of Schubert's Sonata for Arpeggione, a sort of six-string cello, and piano by the inimitable bass trombonist David Taylor. And go to their website, they still left it up. You can hear Taylor Schubert, his version of the song Der Doppelgänger, and the finale of the Arpeggione with piano on the ensemble's website. But these performances supply an imperfect impression of what happened when Taylor played Schubert's sonata with an ensemble of 22 intrepid strings. I first heard Taylor play the Arpeggione Sonata in my living room, accompanying him at the piano. He had just come to the piece and was sticking to Schubert. In subsequent months, he took wayward possession of music with a will. Tempos, dynamics, registers careened towards expressive extremes. The rehearsal with orchestra, courageously led by Angel Gil Ordóñez, were not reassuring. Following a wayward trombonist at the piano is a lot simpler than chasing him with an ensemble in tow. Now check this out. This bugged me for a while until I realized it was a good thing. Meanwhile, Taylor inflicted his insidious sonic imagination on Schubert's innocent keyboard textures. For example, for the opening of the slow movement, he had the violins playing harmonics in imitation of a glass harmonica to set off the low blast of his instruments. The sheer virtuosity of Taylor's command of Schubert acrobatic showpiece was never in doubt. He could play it beautifully. But Taylor's virtuosity, check this out, Taylor's virtuosity is divinely wed to an idiosyncratic musical personality wholly his own, 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 wholly his own. Now check that out. That's what I want for you. Once you get past this audition baloney, wholly his own. It's hard, man. A lot of head shaking and head scratching followed that dress rehearsal. Let me tell you what happened. After the dress rehearsal, this guy, the producer, and the conductor came backstage to talk to me, and they said, look, man, they didn't say that, they didn't say that. Look, David, we spent a lot of money on this, and you got to take it easy out there, because we don't know what's going to happen, you know. Then the producer split, and then the conductor said no. He said, you go, we'll get this. You go, we'll follow, we'll make this happen. So he didn't tell the producer what he said, they talked about it after, but they did, they spent thousands, man. They paid me very well for the show. They paid me for the orchestrations, and they paid a big string orchestra, this thing was string orchestra. So they were really kind of sweating it. The program began with a set of Schubert dances for strings. The Arpeggione Concerto came next. Then, without intermission, the Sublime Adagio from Brooklyn String Quintet, the String Orchestra, followed by two Schubert songs, Taylor's specialty, Der Doppelgänger. After a minute into the concerto, it was suddenly obvious to all that all would be okay. The performance was a bewildering success. The program was hoping to play wonderful like the thought, blah, blah. None of us had anticipated the shock of the doppelganger in this context. It was Taylor's first opportunity to open up and blast us full force. In the audience, bodies bobbed as if electrocuted. Watching the response of the musicians on stage was a rare pleasure. I have never seen members of an orchestra react as vividly or visibly to a solo's entrance as on this occasion. We invited the audience to stay for post-concert discussion. The vast majority did for fully half an hour. Now check this line out. This is what you have to remember. And this is written by a man who produces concerts for the Philharmonic, for the San Francisco Symphony, for orchestras all across the country. The days of the performance specialist are numbered. More and more important instrumentalists will again, as in the days of Liszt and Paganini. Paganini, of course, you all know, is an incredibly famous fiddle player, and Liszt, of course, a piano player. More and more, as in the days of that, be spontaneous creators of their own music. What's your favorite music? Well, give me two titles.
What kind of music?
I don't hear words you mumble.
What kind of music-wise, like vocalists or?
If you had a carte blanche, and somebody gave you 25 grand to get up and do a concert of your own concept of music, what would it be? What composer?
I don't know.
What style?
I like jazz music.
What composer?
I don't know.
What do you listen to?
I listen to all different kinds of music.
You're a trombonist?
Yeah.
What trombonist do you listen to?
I don't know.
You can't think right now. Somebody give me an answer. Somebody who hasn't answered me before. You, gray sweatshirt. What would you do? Here's 50 grand. These are great answers.
Maybe a reinterpretation of something by Ellington.
Okay. These are great answers. I'll tell you why they're great answers. Look how long we had to think of the answer. I need you to start thinking of this now. Jazz bands, orchestras, chamber music groups are spectacular. There are limited openings for you now. Let's be real. When stock prices are down, that's the time to buy stock. When you're looking at limited job opportunities, the best thing to be is yourself. It's yourself now. This is a great time now. I know it might not seem that way. Paying gigs are limited. Take advantage of it. Don't bang your head. I mean, I want you to work at your ideal. At this age now, this is your time to look for whatever your ideal. This is it. Luckily, I mean, and also, find great companions. Find great mates. I lucked out. I mean, that's something maybe the teachers don't talk to you about. It's wonderful that I'm married to a woman for 47 years who has always supported me. Find people who support you in your dream. Remember what I said earlier. Happy talk, keep talking happy talk. If you don't have a dream, you got to have a dream. If you don't have a dream, how are you going to make a dream come true? You have to have a dream. This was my dream. I'm living my dream. You can live your dream. I took chances. I was lucky. It was a different job market. But you're lucky now too. You have no excuse not to be yourselves. You have no excuse not to, who is my what? What would I do? What is the ideal? I mean, I'm lucky. I play with Jay-Z. I play with everybody. I play with all these people. Man, I did a concert with Jay-Z at Carnegie Hall, where I gave my comps to my wife and daughter, but I should have sold them on eBay. 2,000 people. We were doing the DVD. Everybody knew every word. It was insane. I mean, the most complicated. And then he came out and started singing, it's a hard knock life. Oh. He came out singing Eddie, man. It's a dream. The whole thing is a dream. Follow your dream. Okay. But before we go any further, you know what, Angie, we're going to have to break for lunch. I'm getting carried away. I'll only hold you another few minutes. You all know who Andy Warhol is? Campbell soup cans and stuff? Yeah. Right, check this out on the front. Any professional performer I've ever seen, I'll repeat that, any professional performer I've ever seen always does the same thing at exactly the same moment. Any professional performer I've ever seen always does the same thing at exactly the same moment in every show they do. What I like are things that are different all the time. That's why I like amateur performers and bad performers. You can never tell what they will do next. Audiences love spontaneity. They don't love the same interpretations. There's an excerpt of Pablo Casals playing, I'm not going to bore you with it, playing the third cello suite prelude. He gets lost. He gets lost. But he struggles and he works his way through. Audience freak out. That's what they do. You ever see when a fiddle player accidentally breaks a string and has to run off the stage and comes back? They love it. I was singing a song at a recital, and it was the first time I ever sang a song at a recital. It was another Schubert song. It was about a guy contemplating suicide. I started crying in the middle of the song. It was the first time I ever sang a song at a recital. I was embarrassed, terribly embarrassed. It was a big shot recital. But I was knocked out because I couldn't even imagine myself as a kid singing at a recital. Check that out, you know. So I mean, I wasn't crying because necessarily the song was so sad, or it was. It was that I couldn't believe my dream was coming true. I was singing a song at a recital for crying out loud, you know. So that, but now, here's Claude Debussy. Claude Debussy. The attraction of the virtuoso for the public is very like that of the circus for the crowd. There is always the hope that something dangerous might happen. So remember, when you're practicing your technique and you're looking for your perfection, which is what we should do, when you get to that performance, you get it. Just stand there and be who you are and keep going. It will come across. And the last thing I'm going to read to you, I was going to play a lot more stuff, but we're here already now and then. This fellow, Daniel Schmieder, we both, meaning Daniel and I, we both, this is on a new record coming out next month, we both believe that the schism in music, the division and compartmentalization of our world of music, artificially implemented during and after World War II, impeded our ability as classical musicians to converse with modern audiences. I'm going to repeat that. Since World War II, impeded our ability as classical musicians to converse with modern audiences. The exclusion of the idiom of jazz in academia triggered large problems in composition and interpretation. The 21st century, and that's you. The 21st century will have to correct that. We initially recorded the music on this album for ourselves. We did it just for the fun of it, over the timing of this composition, blah, blah, blah. This led me to blah, 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 blah. The intent of our effort is not about crossing borders or crossing over into other genres. Borders should disappear altogether, and the land of music should be unified again as it used to be, when written music represented the cornerstone of our culture. Anybody have a question or anything to say about that? Okay. Then I have to thank you all very much for the patience of my experiment with you. Ensemble rehearsal. But you guys got to get something to eat, whether it's a donut around the corner or a sandwich.